Have you ever wondered how a single desperate choice can ripple through generations, shaping the destiny of entire nations? Our story begins in the shadow of one of history's most dramatic moments, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Amid the chaos and ruins, one family escaped. Lot, Abraham's nephew, and his 2 daughters. Seeking safety, they fled to a remote cave, far from civilization, unsure of what the future would hold. In this isolation, faced with fear and uncertainty, Lot's daughters made a choice that would forever alter the course of history. From this morally complex decision, the first Moabite was born, Moab, whose descendants would rise to form a nation east of the Dead Sea. What makes this story so compelling is not just the origins of a people, but the tension between human choices, divine oversight, and the unpredictable paths of history. The Moabites would become neighbors to Israel, sometimes adversaries, sometimes allies, yet their story is inseparably woven into the fabric of biblical history. As we journey through the plains and highlands of Moab, we will uncover how this nation developed, thrived, and interacted with its neighbors, all while grappling with questions of faith, identity, and morality. From epic conflicts to remarkable acts of loyalty and redemption, the Moabites' tale challenges us to reflect on the consequences of our actions and the surprising ways grace can work through unexpected places. If you are ready to explore the rise and legacy of the Moabites and discover lessons that still resonate today, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. Join us as we unravel a story of ambition, survival, and divine purpose that continues to echo through history. As Moab grew from the legacy of its complex and somber beginnings, the land it occupied shaped not only its economy but also its identity as a nation. Stretching across fertile plains and rolling highlands east of the Dead Sea, the region offered a unique combination of resources that would allow the Moabites to thrive despite the moral ambiguities of their origin. In the valleys where the soil was rich and the rivers provided life-giving water, fields of wheat and barley swayed under the sun, while olive groves and vineyards thrived, their fruits destined to nourish generations and sustain trade with neighboring peoples. Higher up, where the terrain rose into the Trans-Jordan Plateau, pastures unfolded like natural fortresses, ideal for flocks of sheep and goats whose wool and milk became the foundation of local wealth. The Moabites were not merely survivors. They were skilled cultivators of both land and livestock, mastering the art of sustaining a people in an environment that demanded both ingenuity and resilience. Beyond the practicalities of agriculture, Moab's position along major trade routes connecting Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Arabia endowed the nation with opportunities that went far beyond subsistence. Caravans passed through their cities, exchanging exotic goods and rare commodities, while ideas, customs, and technologies also traveled along these pathways, shaping the culture of Moab in subtle yet lasting ways. The Moabites became adept not only in farming and herding but also in navigating the complex web of commerce, diplomacy, and alliance, understanding that their survival depended as much on human ingenuity as on the fertility of their soil. Among their cities, fortifications rose like silent guardians, taking advantage of natural hills and strategic passes, a testament to the Moabites' foresight and awareness of the precariousness of their existence in a region often torn by conflict. Each settlement reflected a careful balance between economic ambition and security, a reflection of the lessons learned from generations who had come before. Waterways like the Arnon River became more than mere sources of irrigation. They were borders, lifelines, and symbols of the nation's ability to harness the land as gifts for both defense and sustenance. In this landscape, Moab flourished quietly but purposefully, laying the groundwork for interactions with powerful neighbors, including Israel, whose paths would intertwine with Moab in both conflict and kinship. The prosperity of Moab, however, was never detached from its origin story. The shadow of Lot's daughter's choice lingered as a moral backdrop, a reminder that even nations born from questionable beginnings could cultivate growth, resilience, and identity. As the Moabites tilled their fields, traded their wares, and defended their cities, they were shaping more than the land. They were forging a society capable of both remarkable achievements and, at times, complex ethical challenges. Their successes in agriculture, trade, and herding created a civilization that could command attention from travelers and rulers alike, making them both respected and sometimes feared. In this way, the Moabites' connection to their land became inseparable from their story, weaving together the natural abundance of fertile plains, the strategic advantage of highlands, and the ingenuity of a people who transformed survival into thriving culture. Their legacy reminds us that the contours of geography, the flow of rivers, and the richness of soil can all shape the destiny of a people, and that even amidst difficult beginnings, a nation can rise to cultivate prosperity, influence, and a place within the larger tapestry of history. As Moab's lands flourished and its people prospered, their path inevitably crossed with that of the Israelites, whose presence to the west cast both opportunity and tension across the plains and highlands. Initially, the relationship was fragile, tinged with apprehension and cautious calculation. For the Moabites recognized the growing power of Israel and the potential threat it posed to their own autonomy. Stories tell of Moabite leaders seeking ways to manipulate this tension, turning to figures like Balaam in a desperate attempt to sway fate in their favor. A measure that revealed both fear and the cunning with which the Moabites approached their powerful neighbors. In these early interactions, strategy intertwined with survival, as Moab sought to navigate a complex landscape where alliances, enmities, and divine considerations could alter the balance of power in a single decision. Yet the encounter between Moab and Israel was not defined solely by opposition. Beyond the fear and scheming, there were subtler currents at play, where influence and culture flowed like hidden rivers between the two peoples. Moabite women, renowned for their beauty and persuasive presence, became agents of seduction and cultural transmission, bringing not only personal charm but also religious ideas and social practices into Israelite communities. The story of the Moabite women and their role in shaping events illustrates how the boundaries between conflict and connection were often blurred. For even in confrontation, there existed avenues for profound interaction. Through feasts, gatherings, and shared spaces, Moab's cultural imprint began to weave itself into the fabric of Israelite life, a testament to the nuanced power of soft influence alongside the blunt force of open hostility. Military confrontations also punctuated this relationship, as Moab sought to defend its territories and assert its sovereignty against a neighbor whose ambitions often seemed boundless. The highlands, with their natural fortifications, became theaters of defense, where Moabite warriors leveraged their intimate knowledge of the terrain to hold strategic positions and guard vital trade routes. At times, these clashes carried both immediate stakes and long-lasting consequences, shaping alliances and enmities that echoed across generations. Yet even amid battles and territorial disputes, there remained an underlying thread of interconnectedness. As trade, intermarriage, and diplomacy continued to flow alongside rivalry, reminding both sides that their destinies were entwined in ways that went beyond mere conquest or subjugation. Religious influence formed another layer of this intricate relationship, as Moab's devotion to its own deities and rituals intersected with Israelite beliefs, producing moments of tension, adaptation, and transformation. Sacred practices, festivals, and symbols became sites of encounter, where the power of faith could both divide and connect, creating opportunities for negotiation, persuasion, and sometimes assimilation. the Moabite god Chemosh, venerated in high places and invoked for protection and victory, was a potent presence in these interactions, representing not just divine authority but also the cultural heart of a people navigating survival, identity, and ambition through these intertwined threads of fear, strategy, cultural exchange, conflict, and religion. The relationship between Moab and Israel emerged as a dynamic and multifaceted narrative. It was a story of a nation that, despite its origins steeped in moral complexity, developed resilience and agency, shaping events not only through the might of its warriors but also through the subtle art of influence and the enduring strength of its traditions in the delicate dance of power, persuasion, and coexistence. Moab's interactions with Israel reveal the complexities of human societies, illustrating how fear and respect, rivalry and connection, can coexist and drive the unfolding of history, leaving a legacy that resonates through generations and continues to captivate the imagination of those who study the ancient world. Amid the fertile plains and rugged highlands of Moab, the spiritual life of the people pulsed with a distinct intensity, centering on the worship of their god Chemosh, whose presence permeated every aspect of daily life and political decision-making. Unlike the Israelite devotion to Yah, which emphasized covenant, law, and community ethics, Moabite worship carried an aura of solemnity, awe, and, at times, fear, shaping both individual behavior and the collective identity of the nation. Sacred spaces crowned the hills and valleys, where altars were raised and rituals performed with a precision that spoke to a profound, almost visceral connection to the divine, a connection that reinforced both the cohesion of the Moabite people and their sense of destiny in a landscape dominated by neighboring powers and shifting alliances. This devotion, however, was far from abstract or symbolic. It demanded tangible acts that could test the limits of human endurance and moral imagination. Extreme rituals, including offerings and sacrifices, were not merely ceremonial but were believed to influence the favor of Chemosh in matters of war, harvest, and survival. The intensity of such practices reflected a worldview in which divine favor was both immediate and consequential, where the survival of a city or the success of a campaign could hinge upon the precise execution of sacred rites. Within this framework, the Moabite sense of piety intertwined inseparably with their political ambitions and social structures, creating a culture where devotion, fear, and loyalty were inseparable threads of a tightly woven tapestry. As Moab interacted with Israel, the contrast between religious worlds became increasingly apparent, and in these moments of encounter, the spiritual distinction carried both cultural and strategic weight. Israelite leaders and prophets often perceived Moabite rituals as morally challenging, their extremity standing in stark relief against the covenantal worship of Yahweh that guided ethical, communal, and judicial life. Yet these differences also opened channels for influence, temptation, and caution, as cultural exchange traveled not only through trade and diplomacy but also through religious encounter, marriages, and the subtle permeation of ideas across borders. The spiritual intensity of Moab, its rituals and festivals, became inseparable from its identity, reinforcing both cohesion and defiance, even as it drew the wary attention of neighboring nations seeking to navigate alliances and enmities. Chemosh's presence shaped more than ritual. It became a symbol of Moabite resilience and ambition, a divine mirror reflecting the fears, hopes, and strategies of a nation perched between the demands of survival and the allure of power. Every offering, every solemn invocation, was an act that reinforced the social hierarchy, validated leadership, and asserted a claim to territory and autonomy. In contrast to Israel's covenantal worship, the Moabite religion demonstrated how faith could serve as both a personal anchor and a national strategy, where the sacred and the political merged into a single, potent force that guided decision-making, cultural expression, and inter-nation relations. Through this lens, Moab's religious life cannot be separated from its historical trajectory. It illuminates why the nation approached diplomacy and conflict with a particular combination of devotion, calculation, and intensity, where every action carried spiritual as well as temporal significance. The worship of Chemosh, with its rigorous demands and symbolic power, defined not only the moral and cultural contours of Moabite society, but also the way the nation positioned itself in a world of neighbors, threats, and opportunities, leaving a legacy that continues to intrigue those who explore the interplay of faith, identity, and history in the ancient Near East. The story of Moab during the formative centuries of Israel's history is a tapestry woven with threads of conflict, accommodation, and fleeting independence, a narrative shaped by both geography and the ambitions of kings. Situated east of the Dead Sea, Moab's fertile valleys and defensible highlands rendered it a prize for any power seeking to dominate the region, and its proximity to Israel inevitably drew it into the larger currents of Near Eastern politics. From the time of the Exodus, when the Israelites emerged from Egypt and traversed the wilderness, Moab found itself both a neighbor and a potential adversary, navigating a delicate balance between hostility and pragmatism, asserting its autonomy whenever opportunity permitted, and submitting when survival demanded. The interactions with Israel were never static. They ebbed and flowed like the currents of the Arnon River, carrying with them stories of negotiation, skirmish, and uneasy coexistence that would echo across generations. Under Saul and later David, Moab's fortunes fluctuated dramatically, reflecting the larger power struggles that defined the Levant. At times, Moab became a vassal state, compelled to pay tribute and offer military support to the ascendant Israelite kingdom, a condition that tested both loyalty and pride, provoking internal debates among Moabite elites over whether to resist or comply. Yet Moabite history was punctuated by moments of assertive rebellion, perhaps none more memorable than the revolt led by King Mesha in the 9th century BC, which left an enduring mark in both Moabite inscriptions and biblical narratives. Mesha's revolt was not merely an act of defiance but a calculated attempt to reclaim autonomy, reaffirm cultural identity, and assert religious devotion through offerings to Chemosh. Intertwining political ambition with spiritual mandate, these episodes illustrate how Moab's leadership navigated the tensions of subjugation, employing diplomacy, opportunistic alliances, and occasional military resistance to preserve the cohesion and dignity of the nation. Even in periods of vassalage, Moab retained a distinct identity. Its culture, religion, and economy continuing to flourish under the watchful eyes of more powerful neighbors. Agriculture and livestock thrived, trade routes remained active, and religious rituals reinforced both authority and community cohesion, demonstrating a resilience that allowed Moab to endure the pressures of occupation and shifting allegiances. The cycles of submission and rebellion were not merely political. They were embedded in the social fabric, shaping family legacies, local governance, and the collective memory of a people who understood that autonomy could be both fragile and worth striving for. Intermittent independence, while often fleeting, provided the Moabites with opportunities to strengthen defenses, cultivate alliances, and assert their presence in the region, reinforcing a sense of national pride that could endure even under external domination. Through these centuries, Moab's narrative emerges not as a simple tale of conquest and subjugation, but as a complex interplay of geography, religion, leadership, and resilience, where each cycle of vassalage or rebellion contributed to a legacy of adaptability and survival. The nation's history is a reflection of strategic acumen, cultural determination, and spiritual fervor, revealing how a relatively small people could navigate the currents of powerful neighbors while maintaining their identity. The story of Moab during the Exodus through the reigns of Saul and David reminds us that history is rarely linear. It is a dynamic continuum where survival, ambition, and faith intertwine, leaving an indelible mark on both the land and its people. As centuries passed, the Moabites, once fierce defenders of their autonomy and distinctive culture, faced the inexorable sweep of empires that reshaped the Near East. The rising powers of Babylon, Persia, and later Rome gradually absorbed the region, and with them, the political independence of Moab waned. Yet, despite these conquests and the assimilation that followed, the Moabites were far from forgotten. Their presence, traditions, and stories became woven into the broader tapestry of biblical history, a legacy that continues to resonate across generations. Moab's cultural and religious influence may have faded in the face of empires, but it lived on through individuals whose lives bridged nations and destinies. Among these, the figure of Ruth stands as a poignant testament to the enduring impact of Moab. Ruth, a Moabite woman of courage, loyalty, and faith, embodies the convergence of two worlds. Through her story of devotion to her Israelite mother-in-law Naomi, Ruth's character transcends the boundaries of nationality and prejudice, illustrating the possibility of unity and reconciliation even after long-standing conflict. Her journey from Moab to Bethlehem is not merely geographical but symbolic, representing the blending of cultures, values, and destinies. In marrying Boaz, Ruth not only secured a future for herself and Naomi, but also became an integral part of Israelite lineage. Her inclusion in the genealogy of King David is a profound acknowledgement of the Moabites' enduring contribution, linking a people once seen as outsiders to the heart of Israelite history and ultimately to the line from which the Messiah would come. This connection underscores the remarkable way in which history, faith, and identity intertwine. The Moabites, though politically absorbed by greater empires, left an imprint that neither conquest nor time could erase. Their story reminds us that the legacies of nations are not only measured in battles won or lost, but in the lives and choices of individuals who carry their heritage forward. Through Ruth, the Moabite influence becomes eternal, testament to resilience, moral courage, and the unexpected ways in which a culture can shape history long after its political power has faded. As we reflect on the journey of Moab from its morally complex origins and fertile lands to its cycles of rebellion, vassalage, and religious distinctiveness, and finally to its lasting spiritual and historical legacy, we see a nation that navigated the vicissitudes of fate with remarkable adaptability. Moab's story enriches our understanding of the ancient world, demonstrating that even small nations can leave a legacy that echoes through the corridors of time. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through history, exploring the triumphs, trials, and lasting contributions of the Moabites. If you enjoyed this story and want to uncover more fascinating tales from the ancient world, please do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an exploration of history that brings the past to life.